Hi there, this is Brittany from By Brittany Goldwyn. I post videos about plants and projects, and today we are planting a bunch of fruit trees. I think like 8 fruit trees, maybe 5 new fruit trees, but then we have to move a couple trees that we had planted earlier this year that were not very well thought out on our part. So I'm going to talk through the different types of trees we are planting, how we're choosing the spacing, and how we are planting the trees in our native soil here in Zone 7 in Western Maryland. Obviously there's not much to see now. Fruit trees are a big investment. They're not cheap and you don't get any produce from them for a long time. It can vary between like 2 to even like 8 years, depending on how mature the plant is that you get and what type of fruit you're growing. So let's take a look at our backyard and I will talk you through what we are putting in the ground to hopefully have fruit in, I don't know, 5 years. So this is our rough plan for placing all of our fruit trees. This is the back of the yard, and we have a couple trees planted back here already, 2 of which we're digging up and moving. They were just some clearance dogwood trees, and 2 of which we're keeping. So Mike is in the process of digging up this Kusa dogwood right now. This is going to go on the other side of our fence. And then we have another one over here that we're going to move to the front yard because it's a nice smaller tree. And then the trees we're keeping are this slightly more mature dogwood here. And then we have a red bud, which is kind of hard to see, but it's right here. And this one has grown like crazy. This is a native tree where we are that is very fast growing. So I highly recommend it if you're looking to fill a treeless property with some trees. This is one of the first trees that we put into our near treeless property, and it is growing like crazy. So back here, we on the map have the 2 pawpaw trees we decided to plant all the way back here. We have no idea what kind of tree this is. My mom just calls it a weed tree, and honestly, it's not pretty and it doesn't really provide much, and it is just on the other side of our fence, still technically within our property line, but we will probably keep this tree up because again, we have no trees, and then dig it up or cut it down when the pawpaw tree here gets big enough to need the space. So we put a pawpaw tree here on either side, 1 over here, and then 1 on the other side of this landscaped area. Now, the long-term plan is that these trees are going to get very large. The spacing on them is 15 to 25 feet between trees, and they get pretty tall as well. So they will need a lot of space and they will provide a lot of shade. So this area, we would love to just convert this to like an all ground cover area. Probably not mulching. I'd like to get away from some of the mulching back here, but provide more of a ground cover. Hi, Henry. You blend in, buddy. What are you doing? Hi, buddy. Oh, he sees Daddy up on the patio. So up here, we also have a persimmon tree. We planted a persimmon tree here, which was not on my radar as a tree to plant initially, just because I don't eat a lot of persimmons, but it is something that we can grow fairly easily here, and the trees get very large and they sound like they taste really good. So we decided to go for it. Up here, we've got a Lappin's cherry tree, which I told my husband I think is a little bit too close to the redbud tree here, but he already planted it while I was out of town and we don't want to move it, so we'll see how that goes. Over here we have a Bing cherry tree, and keep in mind that some of these trees, the varieties are dwarf or semi-dwarf, so they're not going to get nearly as tall as a regular standard tree would. This dogwood we are digging up to put an Ozark plum, which is a dwarf variety. It will only get about 8 to 10 feet tall, so we put it up here in the front. This dogwood we are replacing with a Methley plum, which will be 18 to 20 feet. So we have this here on the side. And I know I forgot one tree. Oh, we have a peach tree that we put in the yard earlier in the season. We are going to be putting it just behind this one here. This is the methyl plum that we're digging up and moving elsewhere in the yard. So as you can see, we will be filling this whole area back here with fruit trees. It's going to be a long process. Fruit trees grow pretty slowly, but we are really looking forward to having our fruit forest back here in 5 to 10 years. But you know, you always hear the best time to plant a tree is last year or 5 to 10 years ago. So we are doing it now and we can't wait until they start growing. So here's an example of a tree actually planted, a bare root tree. This one is ready to go other than mulching. And we are going to do the same thing right here after my husband finishes digging up this Kusa dogwood. Now this is something we're moving elsewhere in the yard, so have no fear. It has a pretty established root ball, so we're just chucking it off to the side here. And then this spot also makes a great place to plant our methyl plum, both because of the location, the amount of sun it gets, and because the dirt already has a great hole with loosened up soil in it. So as a first step, I set the bare root tree down into the hole and I spread the roots out in kind of like a circle pattern. And then I hold that in place while Mike brings over a wheelbarrow full of about 50% native dirt. So you can see our like clay-like rocky native dirt and 50% leaf compost. Now this leaf compost is something that is made locally in our area. It comes in bags marketed as soil conditioner. So it just helps to improve the native soil where we are, and mixing it at about a 50-50 ratio we found to be pretty successful when planting things in the ground. So I will hold the tree in place as Mike begins adding in shovels full of this mixed up soil. And the tape measure there is really only so that we can see where the plant would be hitting the surface of the soil. We didn't want to bury it too deep, so we weren't actually using it as a measuring tape. We were using it to show where the soil line would be. As you're planting the tree, just make sure you tamp down on that soil, either using a tamper or just your boot like Mike is doing here, just to make sure it stays stable and straight as you are filling it up. Okay, so it's about a week after we've planted all of our trees, and I'm just getting around to mulching the area around each of the trees to prepare them for winter and just to help improve some of that soil. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some leaves. I am generally an advocate of leaving the leaves where they fall on your lawn for many reasons, but we have some friends who live in a neighborhood with lots of trees, and a neighborhood that has an HOA that requires them to remove their leaves. Now, I mean, do I wish they didn't have that for ecological reasons? Yes. Do I love that they have it because it means that I get to roll through their neighborhood on yard waste pickup day and get bags of leaves for natural mulch for my garden? Yes, I love that so much. So what I'm doing around here is just spreading a layer of leaves, kind of crunching them up a little bit here. It's not rocket science, just crunch them up a bit. And then once the leaves are on there, I will take some compost. Now, this is compost that we picked up from our local dump. You may have a system similar to you where you live. Where we live, you can get compost for super cheap from your local dump, and it's the product of the yard waste that they collect, the stuff that they would have been collecting if I would have let the leaves go to yard waste. And it's super duper cheap. So we picked up about 220 pounds of compost today for $1.75. You really can't beat it. And we don't have a truck, so as you can see, we just go and we fill up 5-gallon buckets, we fill up boxes. We actually took a couple of the empty paper bags that the leaves came in that were double bagged. We filled those up a bit too. So it's a great resource, and I am using it for some of my insulating mulch here. So I'm just putting a thin layer over top, making sure not to get too close around the tree here. And then what this is going to do is just help improve the soil a little bit more around the tree and also insulate the tree a bit for winter. And then I will give this a good water after I'm done putting this mulch down, and then move on to the next one. Hi, Henry. What are you doing, buddy? Come here. Oh, I have the camera up on a box, and he is climbing into the box right now. That's a cat. I will show you exactly what's going on here. Henry, what are you doing? Psst. Okay, so we've got all of our trees in the ground and our little fruit forest in the back. Shovel finally broke. That shovel has put in a lot of good work over the years, but looks like it was finally done in on digging up some of these fruit trees and planting them, replanting them elsewhere in the yard. I'll probably do an update video and maybe like a year, see what made it through the first winter here and see how much growth we're getting next year. Again, fruit trees are not cheap and they are in big investment, both money and time wise. But I'm looking forward to seeing how these all grow, and hopefully we will have a bountiful harvest in 5 years. Highly recommend putting fruit trees in the ground now if you think you will want fruit at any time in the future. So until my next video, happy planting.